next speaker is Riccardo. He's director at ResearchHub, a very interesting startup founded by the Coinbase founder. They're also supporting the event, so thank you for supporting the ecosystem and the community here. Aside from being the director at ResearchHub, he also is a PhD candidate in bioengineering, working on point-of-care and wearable sensors for applications in oral health. So it's a great combination of an actual scientist, innovator, and entrepreneur. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here. I just sold my crypto, by the way, after this talk, just to be safe. I'll need the... The one? Oh, this one? Cool. Okay. Yeah, so let's talk a bit about what we're doing at ResearchHub. So first of all, give a little intro about me. Not that this is super interesting, but yeah, I build this kind of stuff, which is kind of cool. So I'm building like sensors for my research. I'm still inside of academia, so feeling all the pain of a bunch of the things that we talked about today. I'm also working at the ResearchHub Foundation, 2.5 years in. It's been pretty cool to build the community basically from the ground up. And yeah, today I'll tell a bit more about what we're doing. I want to start, and I want to thank Charlie for the introduction today. It's been amazing to kind of like set the stage, because I'm going to take it back and kind of like give a little summary of like normally what happens when you're trying to get funding and how this normally works for a researcher. So it all starts with taxes. So I guess most of us pay taxes. So your taxpayer dollars, they get into this like funding bodies. They distribute funding to researchers. Then these researchers, with the funding, they run a bunch of experiments. Once the experiments are done and they want to publish their findings, they go to journals, they submit their paper for publication, and after some time, the paper is published in the journal. So this is a graph that shows the time. So as you can see, like it takes a considerable amount of time to go from like getting funded to actually getting your paper published. So it can take up to 2-3 years to finish the experiment. So, for my research, for example, we had some studies, being going on for like a couple of years. And then there's a considerable amount of time that also it takes to get published from going, from like, data findings to an actual publication in a journal. Another really important aspect is money. So same graph, now taking into consideration of money. Normally where money really gets into the mix is at the later stage where you want to publish, and this is why I emphasize this part of the graph, because unfortunately there's a big distinction between what reviewers are getting paid to reviewing the findings of a research paper, and what we have to pay to publish our findings in a journal. So scientific research obviously have issues. One of these is called publish or perish. It's kind of culture that we're pretty much aware of. Basically, the way it works is if you need to get up, climb up the ladder of scientific institutions, you basically need to maximize your reputation. Your reputation is most of the time based on publications and citations. So this publish or perish culture aims to maximize your citations and number of publications. What happens? This creates some effects, which are, for example, a competition, having your research being closed, you don't want to share it before it's actually published, and stuff like research fraud, which is pretty bad, and p-hacking. So I don't know if you should know exactly what that is, but basically the idea is with hacking, you're starting with a hypothesis, then during the research, you're finding that your hypothesis is not really verified, and so since you cannot really publish negative results, it doesn't really happen most of the time. What you're doing is you're changing your initial hypothesis to match the results that you're getting so that you can get published. So a bunch of really nasty stuff happening because of this culture. Another problem that scientific research has is the job market. So when you're getting into research, you're getting into the university, you're a PhD student and you want to become a professor, just know that unfortunately only less than 2% of first-year PhD students actually become professors. And so it's really, really hard as a market to get into if you're passionate about research. And the last one is reproducibility. So this is actually the reason why I got into DeSci. I was running some experiments 3 years ago, basically, I was not getting the results that I was trying to mimic from a paper that was published. And so I was really questioning myself. I was like, maybe I'm not just good enough. I'm not being able to replicate something that has been published. But the reason was that the paper itself was not reproducible. So this didn't only happen to me. This unfortunately happens most of the time. So more than 70% of researchers have tried and failed to replicate studies, which is insane, pretty much insane. Talking about knowledge, like we're basing our consideration of knowledge on something that is not reproducible. So this is where, trying to summarize where the system falls short. We have a problem of money, which is, it is a system that is expensive to access, but also to publish to. It takes a long time to print because incentives are not right, and it is really not a reproducible system. Oh shit. Okay. So what does DeSci does? So you're all familiar with the term DeSci. So decentralized science. What does that unlock? We have a few pillars, I would say. One is distributed storage. So it's a distributed system. We're aiming to distribute the storage, but also having this concept of community ownership, where you can take, for example, we're talking about IP. We can potentially fractionalize IP, and one could have a little bit of ownership over that IP. Another really important element, which is the one that I'm going to talk about today, is financial incentives. So we can, with DeSci, potentially rewrite incentives in a way where potentially we can make the whole scientific process a little bit better. So this is where ResearchHub comes in. ResearchHub is what we like to call like a modern-day preprint server, where we aim to change incentives in a way where we can stimulate better science. And so that's why our mission is to accelerate the pace on science through incentives on the blockchain. This is how it appears. So this is like a Reddit-style forum where you can upload your research, you can share your findings through data or just share your publication. We have different elements of the platform, which are highlighted here. For example, we have bounties, which are pretty cool. It's like a system where everyone on ResearchHub can put up a little sum of money for people to complete specific tasks. So for example, analyzing some data, proofreading some articles, and so on, and then get paid directly on ResearchHub for that service. We have started working on funding. So we have just funded a couple of studies in the order of like 10K, with some of the DAOs actually in the DeSci space, so that was really exciting. We have a lab notebook that you can use. Again. We have a lab notebook that you can use to write anything you want to publish on ResearchHub. And then we have a reference manager to manage your references. The last thing that we're doing is we just launched a peer review program 9 months ago, and so I'm going to be talking a bit more about that. But first of all, I think something really exciting is that we are revamping our reputation system. So anyone on ResearchHub has a profile. The way it works is we aim for you to create your scientific profile as you would do on other platforms like ResearchGate. And we're keeping track of some traditional metrics. So for example, all the papers that you've published and so on. But we're also adding a layer of, let's say, open science. So we're keeping track of like all of the open access articles that you've published, all of the preprints that you've published, but also all of the peer reviews that you have performed, which is something that is normally not taken care too much in the traditional system. So this is how it will look like. Basically, we'll have your citations divided by field. Something that is really not, I haven't seen a lot in the space is, we're talking about reputation. Well, reputation is a really, is not a singular, like when you talk about reputation, it's not just a number, especially in a field like I'm a bioengineering student. My reputation would not be the same in bioengineering as it would be in economics. And so the way we want to build this is a dynamic reputation that changes depending on the field where you're leaving a comment or reviewing or writing an article. So that's kind of like what we're building right now. So as I said, you can write and publish on ResearchHub. We have a notebook that works in a similar way like Google Docs. You can start writing an article and publish directly on ResearchHub by assigning a DOI as you would do on other platforms by not paying a fee. So it's something that we're really proud of. You can, as I said, manage references. This is kind of like a beta test, but we have a reference manager where ideally you can build your own library and have people in the future follow your library. So for example, let's say that I want to get into a lab of a professor and I would really love to see what this professor is reading so that I can read something before when I get into his lab. Well, an idea is building this reference manager in where there's a social layer where that would allow you to basically follow people. We have this concept through bounties that is like the earn with knowledge. So we have this idea that on ResearchHub you could potentially earn with your knowledge. There's this community member, Nick, that had some data, and he was really not feeling like doing data analysis about a specific data set he had. And so what he did is he put up a bounty on ResearchHub for people to come in, take the data set, analyze it, and provide some process data out of his data set. And so that was actually fulfilled. So it's a really quick way for you to make money if you have specific knowledge that you can, put it use in the scientific community. Since we were talking about funding, we have just started in 2024 to fund some studies. So this was from Athena DAO. We only require people to submit a pre-registration. So I don't know how many people are familiar here with the pre-registration term. Basically, the idea is, since there's a bunch of scientific misconduct and fraud, pre-registration kind of like tries to mitigate the problem. You have to submit beforehand how you're gonna perform the study, what is your hypothesis, what is the result you're trying to achieve, so that you cannot change the plot while you're, making experiments, basically. So we require you to submit a pre-registration, then you go through a first screening, and then there's a short list of projects that are selected, and they go live on ResearchHub for people to fund them. This is crowdfunding, so anyone really on ResearchHub could crowdfund these studies, but we've also participated from the ResearchHub Foundation to fund these studies. So going back to the graph that I showed you before, I again want to highlight how long it takes for you to get published. So after all the process of getting funding and running the experiments, there's a considerably long time that shouldn't be there for you to publish on a journal. So we've seen before with Shelley like how long it takes, 50 days to like 150 days to get through the first peer review stage. And we've also seen that it can cost you a bunch of money to get paid in a journal. So what we did is we launched a financially incentivized peer review program where basically you could come on ResearchHub and get paid for your peer reviews. The way we're doing it is we're basically paying $150 for anyone that comes on ResearchHub and leaves a peer review on a preprint or on an already published paper. This is an example. This is a community member, again, that left a peer review on a preprint coming from bioRxiv. And what it did is, since we have inline commenting as well, so we can do inline comments on PDFs, he left some comments as you would do in a traditional peer review, in addition to like comments that you just leave under the paper. So it's like a summary and inline comments as you would do again for like traditional peer reviews. This is, I don't know if you know who James Sethers is, but there's been a rise in this like group of people, like academic sleuths, that are, again, since there's a lot of like scientific misconduct, it's like, think about it like a group of detectives that are hunting inside papers, like potential hints at misconducts. And so what James did is he left a peer review on this paper, obviously with a pretty low grade, basically identifying where a potential scientific misconduct could have been in the paper. So it's also a great way for our community members to spot potential fraud in papers directly on ResearchHub. Really simple. This is the way it happens right now with our program. We have a system where we import every day from bioRxiv all the preprints that are posted, and then each paper that receives 5 upvotes receives a peer review bounty. You can go provide a review once the bounty is in, And then we have an editor program. So we have basically a group of people that are editors that are have specific expertise in specific fields. They're going to assess the review, and if the review is of good quality, are going to award the bounty. And and we're going to award the bounty to you. We have a bunch of fields that are being peer-reviewed. This is the number of peer reviews that we've gotten, just to show you some results of our program since we started basically this peer review program started in November 2023, actually in August 2023. So as you will see, since we started, there's been a constant rise in peer reviews, and we've now found a pretty good floor of like 10 peer reviews a week being performed. We've also seen that people like to peer review a bunch of different fields, but as we've seen already in the DeSci space, there's a lot of alignment in between the blockchain space and the bio space. So most of the fields that are being reviewed are neuroscience, biology, any bio-adjacent field really. So we've seen that our community are organizing more and more around biomedical science. Lastly, a few takeaways just to close the talk. We think incentives are really, really important in the way we do science. By changing incentives, we could hopefully change science a bit for the better. This is just, I think everyone here in the space is just experimenting, so we are as well. We just started this program 9 months ago. We got 650 peer reviews, so about 2 peer reviews a day. We project 1,000 peer reviews for this year. And we have reduced the time to get peer reviewed from 50 to 150 that happens in journals to about 16 days, which is, I would say, quite an achievement for what we're trying to do right now. And we've also, again, since it's incentives are important, we have paid out almost $100,000 to our community members for providing these peer reviews. So hopefully this is exciting to you as well. If you want to learn about ResearchHub, just know that we have a LinkedIn profile, we have a Twitter profile. If you want to get involved directly, since maybe you're interested in peer reviewing, just like reading some articles, you can register on ResearchHub, or you can be part of our community, join our community on Discord. So yeah, thank you for the attention. Happy to take any questions.
We have a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, I would like to know more. How do you approach reputation? I'm working on reputation as well. Yeah, I would just want to know like the biggest challenges, if you use reputation to resource allocation. Yeah, I would love to know more about that. Thank you.
So we are currently working on reputation because we basically, when we started, we just had a ResearchHub specific reputation. So you come on ResearchHub, you register as you would do on a whatever website, and you start to grow reputation within ResearchHub. Then we realized that people wanted to know the reputation of a person commenting under a paper coming from the outside of the platform. So let's say that you leave a comment under my paper. You leave a peer review under my paper. I want to know exactly what you're working on, what is your expertise in the field. So the way for us to do it was, okay, we need to introduce reputation from outside our closed system, from traditional academia. But if we use traditional reputational metrics, then we're falling into the same problems. So if we just count citations, if we just count the number of papers, then we're basically falling back to the same problems that we're trying to solve. So the way we're doing this is we're taking some metrics, like for example, citations and number of papers, because they are, at the end of the day, important. But on top of that, we want to layer some other aspects, for example, of open access. So how many papers do you publish are open access? Or how many peer reviews done? Something that is not currently taken care of is, for example, your contributions to science that are not just papers. I think people should be rewarded in terms of reputation for providing peer reviews, because you could literally, building on the system, potentially make a career out of being a peer reviewer. If you could earn, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month just by peer reviewing, you should be able to do so, and it should be reflected in your reputation. So we're basically taking traditional reputation metrics, on top of that adding a layer of like open access, so because we're favoring open science and open access, and on top of that trying to add whatever is left outside of the equation right now, which is contributions that are not taken, normally taken into account in science. So for example, the number of peer reviews. And the other aspect that I was mentioning is reputation being dynamic. So again, you're leaving a comment under my paper. I can see your reputation score, but if it's just a number, I don't know how that fits to my field. So your number should be different depending on where you're commenting. Again, if I'm leaving a comment in economics and I'm a bioengineering PhD student, my reputation should probably be pretty low. While in bioengineering, I probably have a bit more achievements. So it's not really easy, but and it can get complex in the way you model it. But the idea is, again, to have a reputation system that is more versatile to be used in different fields, basically.